from similar symptoms. And they do get upset sometimes, especially when they can barely remember who they are themselves. And but you know, there's always a joke of like, if you don't want someone to stay upset when they have that condition, you just have to wait around a little bit, and they'll forget that they're even up and that they were ever mad, which I think is totally messed up to do. You know? But at the same time, sometimes there's not much you can do at all when someone's upset to quell their anger. I guess it's kind of difficult to see. Maybe I need to tone down the contrast a little bit. No. Hmm. Let's see. Hmm. I guess that's good. I know it's kind of difficult for me, even me, to see how well it looks. Like, how's it look for you guys? Is it alright? Hmm. So yeah, back to Finding Dory. That was a really wonderful movie, and uh, I guess because I'm an adult, I always try to see the romance in things, like actual romance, and it's like you can't really do that because you know they're all fish and they're all different species, so it's kind of like trying to form a love connection between you know a dog and a cat. You could do it, but it's just weird because you know they're not the same. You know, it's not like with people you have interracial relationships, and I stumbled through that. It's not like that, you know, because essentially at the end of the day we're all the same species. We may look different, but we're all the same on the inside. Versus like, you know, fish. Some fish have, yeah, I don't know why it looks so fuzzy. Maybe if I zoom out, it won't look so bad. Like, there's not much I can do about the quality of the stream right now. I mean, it says I'm, my bit rate is pretty strong. So, I know when I look at the preview of what I'm doing, what I'm recording, it looks fine-ish. But when I look on the stream, I can see that it is fuzzy. Fuzzy Wuzzy was a bear. So yeah, it was really interesting to see how human the different creatures in Finding Dory were animated. Like, did they look human? Not at all. They very much look like what they were supposed to be. But the mannerisms and stuff, that was pretty amazing. They put a lot of work into it, from what I could gather, from just having watched it as a casual viewer. So I liked it. They had a lot of drama and tension, and the great part of it was like it didn't feel necessary that there was a villain in the series, or in this particular movie. Like the first one, Finding Nemo, of course, they had the sharks. Now the sharks themselves weren't necessarily bad, but they were led mafioso style, and the leader of the sharks was portrayed as fairly evil. So, but this one there wasn't a clear-cut antagonist. It was more like just the adventure of trying to find Dory's parents and, you know, for Nemo and I don't remember the dad's name, which is kind of terrible considering he's a very important character. They were trying to find Dory because Dory had gotten lost. She had wandered off as she was keen to do. So that was that. I liked how they made this really passive aggressive giant clam just hold up in what appeared to be like drainage, which made sense because clams and oysters and other creatures like that are filter feeders. So it was just chilling out there alone. And they were quite aware that they had been alone for a long time. But then, I don't know if it was coincidence or not, but you kind of got an understanding why that giant clam did not have very many visitors. Because, again, it was very passive aggressive. It was like, my wife left me because, I didn't do this, but maybe it wasn't so bad, but what, she shouldn't have done this and that kind of stuff, and it's just rambling on and on. No one wants to hear the life stories. I mean, it's one thing to be compassionate, but it's another to like force people to be compassionate for you. I feel, wrong. You shouldn't try to manipulate people's feelings in that way. So, something that I think is kind of fun to do sometimes, like when you're listening to music, especially if and this really only works if it's something that you're not that familiar with, to try to guess the progression of notes ahead of when it plays. It's kind of like a game of sorts. Speaking of games, though, so one game that I like to do, and it's I think it's a lot of fun, but it can also be very how do you say, stressful. It's essentially, well, all right, it's an improv game. So basically, the goal is to tell a coherent story between a group of people. And usually the way that you play this is like around a campfire, and you would build a story based off of one word, and whoever like can't think of a word or whatever has to well, lose. They lose the game. They can no longer continue or whatever. So, and then there's a variation of this where they have to continue the story using a certain letter of the alphabet. So, if someone starts the story off with O, the next word has to start with P. You know, so this etc. etc. So, but in my version of the game, someone or a group of people or whatever decide on a specific prompt, a nature of the story, and then each participant just adds a single paragraph to that story, and it has to be cohesive. It has to make sense. You can't be telling a story about Tarzan, for example, and then the next paragraph is completely unrelated. It's about a bank robbery. It has to at least build up to those changes in the scene mid-paragraph or so. And basically what this does is this game exercises one's creativity and adapting to a situation and using, language skills and therefore bettering their language skills in writing and such. Because, it's basically forcing you to think of different solutions for any given situation out of your control. I mean, I guess in a way you could control it if you uh, somehow forced the other participants to start thinking about certain things. But I think that's more meta than what most people go for. Kind of like in chess when you goad someone into making a bad move. It's not like you are physically strong-arming someone into making a bad move or a bad choice or whatever. But, you make them want to go for a target that's much easier to handle. Because, people always try to, well, not always, for the most part, people try to seek the path of least resistance. So at some point, I do plan on getting a better microphone. I mean, I guess my current microphone setup isn't bad, but it's not as good as it could be. So, and then after that, I'll probably upgrade my camera. But at some point, I do need to buy a new guitar. And I would love to be able to get a 7 string or an 8 string. Not necessarily to play genty things, but I think that definitely would be fun. I've been listening to this band called Good Tiger, and they have a lot of low end, but they don't play necessarily low end sound music. It's more like, well, I guess it's kind of difficult to describe. It's kind of like quote unquote genty jazz or like fusion. Good Tiger, pretty good. I like them. I came across them randomly while listening to just this playlist on Spotify. It's like a weekly playlist where like they compile songs that you might be interested in based off of like a week-to-week basis. Some fresh songs or whatever. as opposed to